gamers? I'm Jason.
I'm Julie.
And today on Dice and Dragons, we are going to be morphing because this is the Power Rangers deck building game designed by Matt Hyra and published by Renegade Game Studios. Now, I'll toss it over to Julie, who's going to tell you more about the game itself.
So it is a competitive, as Jason said, deck builder that's intended for 2 to 4 players. You can play 1v1, 2v1, or 2v2. It's for ages 13 and above. The box is 30 to 70 minutes. I think we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that estimate. And just so that we are clear, we have played the 1v1 version of the game. We are not quite back up to in-person gaming here currently. So what will you be doing in Power Rangers, a deck building game? Well, deck building game, don't think it really matters. You will either be one of the Rangers or one of their villains, such as Rita Repulsa, Lord Zed. You'll be purchasing cards from the morphing grid. You must attach those cards to your character to use some of their abilities. There are other cards that you can play from your hand. Like other deck building games, you will have different resources. You have energy and shards. Energy is used to trigger abilities. Shards are used to purchase cards. What's interesting about this game is you do get to store your energy. So keep that in mind while you're playing the game. You'll then be executing moves, potentially blocking and healing as you try to defeat the other team's members. So it could be one person, or depending if you're playing 2v1 or 2v2, you might have multiple foes to defeat. Did I miss anything, Julie?
I think you got it covered.
All right, so let's grab our drinks. Grab our rival, adversary.
And we're going to take it to the table one more time.
One more time. We're all set up. Let's kick some butt. Now let's take a quick look at the components for Power Rangers, a deck building game. Well, it's just Power Rangers deck building game, but it doesn't flow off the tongue nicely. So we have the rule book. You have a nice quick instruction for the start phase, main phase, and end phase. It's really good. Overall, I like the rule book. Everything is well laid out and explained. I do feel that it's a little bit wordy, so it does seem a little bit more complicated complicated than it is actually. But everything you need is here. It's not that difficult to find, and Julie and I were able to answer any questions during our play. Here we have, and we'll take a look at these first, the trackers for the health as well as the energy. So we've got one for the villains and one for the heroes. Now, just to note, we did pre-order this from Renegade Games, so we ended up, and I don't have them on camera here, getting some extra ones with some different art, which I thought was pretty cool. Green Ranger versus Scorpina. There are also the White Ranger cards, which have been included in the setup here. The other thing we get is the dual layered Zord Bay, which is just a little bit nicer upgrade. I do think it adds a little bit of flair to the game, but it's not necessarily compared to this Zord Bay. Now, this is a Zord Bay where you will be placing your Zords when you acquire them. And then for the villains, we have the layer where the master cards will be going once they have been acquired. You have a starting deck of 10 cards made up of teamwork, which generates shards, attitude, which will let you do some card culling after you battle in the morphing grid, which we'll talk about during our how to play. You get a recovery card and a power coin, which generates energy for you to trigger things like the abilities on your weapons. For the villains, it is mayhem. It serves the same purpose. Disposable is their card that replaces attitude. Rebuild is the heal, and putty clay is the one that will give you energy. Now, each ranger and villain has their own signature item that only they can get. So, of course, we have the power sword, power daggers, power axe, power lance, power bow, the dragon dagger, and Saba. All of these are thematic to their characters. So, for example, the power sword deals damage equal to the cost of a hero you bought. Saba will deal damage equal to the cost of another card. The dragon dagger lets you re-equip something and heal. And they all really work well with the characters and their abilities. Same go for the villain's weapons. For example, Rita Revolto, you can gain one non-hero card that costs 3 or less from the grid and put it into your hand. Pretty cool. Rita's staff will let you discard cards, which goes well with her ability, her attack. That means that you have to hit people and you don't want them to have attached cards. the Scorpion Fin's very damaging. You deal 3 damage, and if you negate it, you still get to draw a card. Goldar's wings are all about blocking, and he does a lot of blocking as a character. Now, each character has their own signature Zord. They will get that Zord when they morph. Other Zords have to be purchased. So these can all be triggered and then have to be refreshed by the Zord Bay. They go into the Zord Bay. So Tyrannosaurus, deal 1 damage for each hero you control. Triceratops, deal 5 damage. Dragon Zord, deal 5 damage if negated, discard this card. Triceratops, target foe gains 1 stun for each block in your discard pile. Some nasty stuff. As you can see, we got the white promo cards. We got the Tiger Zord. And then, of course, there's the Mega Zord, which if you get 6 Zords, and one of them has to be the Dragon Zord, you can get the Mega Dragon Zord, which is pretty cool. We've got the Masters, who work a little differently. They've got ongoing effects that'll happen at the start of each turn. So Rito lets you draw a card. Lord Zed lets you destroy a card, which is pretty cool. Scorpina makes your target foe discard a card. Finster deals damage. Rita gains you energy. And discard 3 cards. So you can always discard 3 cards from your hand with Goldar to block an attack. And that can be useful, but I don't know. We'll talk about it a little bit when we get to the review about how blocking and things work. Here we've got our character cards. So Mighty Morphin Red, White, the promo card, Green, Black, Pink, Blue, Yellow. These have their different abilities. The abilities of attached cards, that's what these slots are for, will go down. Once you've morphed, they'll have their teenager ability side where they start, and you'll be building up to getting them morphed and into action. So as you see, when all 4 slots are filled, attach your Zord to the Zord Bay and flip this card. And it was pretty cool stuff, though. You pay, like Tommy Oliver, you pay 1 less to buy cards from the grid, which costs 5+. So similar stuff for the Masters. They all start out scheming. Rita's got a particularly nasty ability. The first time you attach a card during each of your turns, you deal 1 damage to target foe for each empty slot on their character. Rita, when you attach a card with 2 or 3 costs, you get to draw a card. Then when they're powered up, these things will change. So Rita, deal 1 damage to target foe for each empty slot on their character. That can be fairly difficult to do. So Goldar, deal 3 damage for each block attached to you. So I mean, that's his like main attack. So all you want to be doing is blocking constantly and attacking. So once he's set up, he can be fairly strong. And I mean, you can even get villains that block, which is pretty cool. Finster can deal lots of damage for putty cards. Scorpina just deals tons of damage for attacks she has. So there's a lot of nasty things that these characters can do. Then you've got the Stun and Blade Blaster, which I won't pick up. Blade Blasters are standard cards that give you 2 energy, and at the end of your turn, you may destroy this card. So even after you gain the 2 shards, you can deal 1 damage or put 1 card from the grid into the discard pile. So any card that hasn't been played, if there's something you couldn't defeat or something you just don't want an opponent to have, you can discard it. With stuns, if you heal 2 HP the turn that you have it in your hand, you get to get rid of it. Now take a look at the morphing grid. So we got different kinds of cards. We have locations, which have ongoing effects that will trigger when you meet the conditions. Maneuvers that can gain you shards and energy, and then they'll have attacks or blocks. Like for example, it's Morphin Time is pretty cool. You get to gain 1 non-adversary card from the grid. We've got villains. Also gets you shards or an energy. Morphin Time gives you 8 energy. They have different attacks. So destroy 1 card in your hand or discard pile. You attack and deal damage equal to its value. We got Babu. We also have heroes like Alpha 5 and the other Rangers. And those are really the 4 different types of cards. The cost to buy the cards are up here, what they generate, and the cost to trigger it when they are attached to your character is listed there. So there you have it. We've taken a look at all of the components for Power Rangers deck building game. Now keep it right here as we'll be teaching you how to set up and then how to play. Now I'm going to teach you how to set up Power Rangers, a deck building game. So we've got the Zord Bay and the layer. Now these are going to be set up in front of the players. Now I'm not going to lie, this game is a little bit of a table hog because you need to attach cards to your characters. So for this setup, I just have everything zoomed in. We're going to go over everything, but some stuff will probably be set up off camera, and I'm probably going to do some zooming out afterwards, but I really wanted to go over this in detail. What you'll need to do is to set aside the Zord and the signature weapon for your Rangers. So these are just going to be off this way, nearby for Jason if he needs them. You take the Master card and the signature weapon for your villain, and those are also set off to the side. Now, you're going to want to make sure that your energy is set at 0 and health is set at 30. That will also be placed off camera. You do the same for the villains. Let me place off camera there. Now, any excess signature weapons, no matter if they're for the villains or heroes, get returned to the game box. Now I need to figure out who is the first player, who is the second player. In this case, we'll play that the Rangers are player 1 and the villains are player 2. I'll just put it on those areas as it doesn't really matter. You're going to want to have the stun and blade blaster decks set up face up. You don't need to shuffle them. They are all identical. And we'll have those also just slightly off camera. You will need to set up the Masters and the Zords. What you do is you take the deck, shuffle the Masters up, then you reveal the top one. In this case, it would be Lord Zed. Now, once I've gained my own Master card, which has to be attached here, that's off to the side, you will then be able to purchase Lord Zed. Same thing goes for the Zords. You have to gain your Zord. However, it's a little bit different for the Rangers, as once they morph, they get their Zord automatically, and they are placed in the first slot in the Zord bay. They'll then have to be able to purchase more Zords once they've morphed. Now, each player has their own starting hand. So you take the starting hand and shuffle it. I will keep this on camera. And we'll just put it here. I know it's a little cut off. Doesn't really matter. The importance is that you can see it. Do the same thing with the villain cards. All right, and we'll place this here. So we'll also put the stun and blade blasters out. Now I have my Morphin Grid deck of cards. Now this main deck I'm not going to put on camera just to give myself a better play space. Having the deck out is going to take up a little too much room. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a 3x3 grid of the decks that are available. Sorry, the cards that are available to purchase, and keep the deck off camera. So you can only have 2 of each type of card. Meaning if I draw, well, you know what? We're going to slide these off as I just don't quite have the room. So I can't have more than 2 maneuvers. I've got the rad bug and the telescope, meaning if I do happen to draw another equipment, they would be discarded. So in this case, we have a perfectly legal draw. If Zordon per se had been, I'm just looking at the top here, we'll see. Don't have anything at the top. Oh, see, Zordon had been the portal bomb, I'd put this at the bottom of the deck and replace it with a different card. Now since I looked at the top, we'll just shuffle this up a little bit more. And there you have it. Now that I can see where my cards are, we'll just put these here as a reminder that the stun and blade blasters are off to the side here. So now we are all set up. Let's teach you how to play Power Rangers, a deck building game. So now let's teach you how to play Power Rangers, a deck building game. Now for those of you that may have skipped over the setup, we do have some stuff that is off to the side. We have Rito Revolto's Master Card and Skeleton Sword. We've got Jason's Power Sword and Tyrannosaurus. We also have the counters for each of characters off to the side. This is a 1v1 setup. The Megazord is also off to the side. Well, Megazord and Mega Dragon Zord. This will only come into play once the Zord Bay is full, and you also have the Dragon Zord. We have the stun and blade blasters just off camera because they just sort of get in the way, and the main deck is off camera as well, just to keep everything nice and neat. So now we're going to teach you how to play the game. Now each player will start the game by drawing 5 cards from their starting deck. And take a look at what cards you have. So in this case, we have 2 shards, we have Attitude, We have a power coin and recovery. This is really not a good draw for Jason. We'll be able to purchase something, but we're going to take some damage from squat, and the attitude isn't very good. So what we can do with shards, shards may be used to either buy a card for the purchase cost in the corner, or used to battle a card of the opposite side for the cost that is written down below. So in this case, I would need 4 shards to defeat squat, where he would then be discarded and not available to Rito for purchase. Also, at the end of the turn, he will deal damage to me. Now, if I was going to be able to battle squat and play attitude, this would let me destroy up to 2 cards I control. Cards that I control is anything that I played that turn that is in my play area. The discard does not count for cards that you control. In this case, I'm going to discard this. It's just going to be below here. I'm doing it early because attitude is not serving me at all this turn. Same thing with recovery. Got it on the wrong turn. We will use the power coin, however, to gain 3 energy, putting us at 3 energy. Now for 2, I've got the choice of Alpha 5 or Zordon. Just got to get Zordon because he's so good. With Zordon, you gain 5 energy every turn that you play him. Or if he's attached to your hero, and when a card is attached to your hero, you may then use this ability. You get to reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a hero or equipment card, draw it. Otherwise, you may destroy it or leave it. So it's a great way to thin your deck as well. Once you acquire a card, it goes into your discard pile. That's the end of the turn. All my cards go into the discard pile. I will then take 1 damage from squat. So because he's there. Now this damage is not an attack. It cannot be blocked. That brings me down to 29. We will now then refresh cards from the Morphin Group deck. We will take out the Viewing Globe. Now, another option that I had with only 2 would have been to purchase the Blade Blaster and put it into my hand. So we'll take Rito's 5 cards. Also, at this point in time, Jason would have drawn his other cards. So we'll just play that there face up to remind everyone that these are in play. Why it's important is if you'd acquired something like a block later on in the game, you can potentially play it from your hand. So we've got pretty much a similar situation. I mean, we need to acquire a villain in order to flip our card. So the simple thing is we're going to spend the 3 to get squat. So these will be then discarded. We're going to purchase squat. The rebuild will be useless. And we're going to gain 3 energy from the putty clay. Now, you heard me say that I'm going to purchase squat because I need him to play here. In order to flip to our empowered side, we need to have each of these card slots filled. Once you've been flipped over to the empowered side, or in the case of the ranger, your ranger side, you will not need to flip back. Now, the abilities are completely different between both sides, so keep that in mind. Alpha 5 is still left, so I will take 1 damage on Rito, and we will once again refill the Morphin Grid. Now, we've got some cool stuff, but this is going to be a really fast turn for Jason. He needs to get a maneuver. There's a great one there that lets you heal. There's also the Rad Bug, which lets you block. It also gains, the Rad Bug gives you shard and energy. Or you can buy the Command Center, and if you control 2 different, you know what? As much as these cards are cool, I know that Rito can't buy them because of the cards he played, as there's a fixed amount of Teamwork or Mayhems. We're going to waste 1. We're going to spend 4 to purchase the Command Center, which immediately goes into play. And has an ongoing effect, which says if you control 2 different starters, you gain 1 energy. If you control 3+ different starters, you gain 2 energy instead. So we don't control either of those, but as we're going through our starter cards, it's a great way to potentially gain some extra shards for cards that aren't that great in our deck. Although I would have loved to have gotten Regenerate. At this point, we've gone through everything, so we will reshuffle our deck. And we keep going. So that's a neat thing about the command center, but I'm looking at what's going on here. And in retrospect, I made my decision, but the smarter decision for Jason, as I need 2 hero slots, would have been to pick up Alpha 5. But you've got some other stuff going on. See? Rito's got some other stuff that's maybe a little tempting for him. So his 5 cards are for Mayhem and the Disposable. Well, Disposable really changed things up. So we're actually going to play 3. So we'll play Disposable first. We'll then play the 3 shards to defeat Alpha. He goes into the discard pile. We then get to draw a card. Hopefully it's a Mayhem, because we're in the process of thinning out our deck here. So I'll draw a card. It is a Mayhem. So we have 2 energy. We're going to take a Blade Blaster, which will go into our new discard pile. And as we play Disposable, we can destroy 2 cards we control. So we're going to get rid of 2 Mayhems right now. Disposable will let us chuck those. We'll take these along with the Blade Blaster that's now in my discard. Place the cards. You can't see them. They're just all right here. We'll then take a look at what I got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I've got my new starting hand. So Jason reshuffled. I'll draw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Neglected to do that last turn. Didn't really matter as there was no actions taken against me. So Jason's turn, we refresh. And we got some interesting stuff. We got the Sword of Darkness. Can we buy it? No, we've got 2 Teamworks, an Attitude, Recovery, and Zordon. Well, attaching Zordon is pretty cool. I want to do it because it's going to teach the effect. I probably should have played him for energy, but it's okay. Just teaching the game. So play him. When you play or attach a hero, we get to deal 1 damage, meaning Rito will take a damage. It's not an attack. It's just I'm dealing damage. So at this point, I control 3+ different starter cards, meaning I gain an extra 2 shards, plus the 2 that I've got here. So not a lot of great stuff that I can buy, but I can gain the Moon Palace to take it away from Rito when you play or battle a villain, destroy or discard a card. But I want to get some better resource generation in my deck. So at this point, I'll take the Viewing Globe and place it in the discard pile. And I place the rest of my hand in there because I'm not going to do anything. Well, I'm going to play Recovery to heal myself 1 HP and get back up to 30. Now we'll do 1 more turn with Rito. And then we will move a little bit further on and discuss some of the other aspects of the game. But you get the idea to the flow of everything. So in this case, we got Putty Clay, gain 3 energy, rebuild. It's going to let us heal 1. I can attach Squat, which will let me draw a card, which is actually a really good thing for me to do. So I'll slide him over, play it. I'm going to attach the card. And when I attach a card that's 2, 3, or 1 cost, I get to draw a card. Now, important thing to notice, I played Rebuild and Putty Clay. These are still cards I control this turn. They're not in my discard. So be very careful when you do things like that. So you draw the correct cards. I got the Blade Blaster. So this gives me 4. And it would have been nice to maybe have it a little earlier. But the idea of gaining some energy or destroying stuff when I've got a villain, I think this is pretty cool. So I'd buy the Moon Palace and just everything's a little crowded. So I'll put it off camera and I put it into play. Everything here would go into my discard pile. Then refresh and play will now continue. Now let's keep going here and we'll imagine that we've been able to buy some stuff. So in this case, I'm going to move these off camera because we're not going to need them anymore for the explanation. Let's imagine that Rito had paid 7 to gain Rito Revolto as a master. And then let's say I got my Skeleton Sword and had a maneuver, and we'll just take the strike oppose. Well, imagine I played all these cards on Rito. He's now flipped over and he is empowered. So this is what you need to do to get your characters empowered. Now for Jason, we would have had to, and we'll move the command center off camera, acquire heroes, equipment. Oh, I like sort of darkness better. Equipment, maneuvers. Once you do all that, you're flipped over to your ranger side. You also acquire your Zord, which will go in the Zord Bay. Normally go in slot 1. I'm just going to put it like that because it makes things a little clearer right now for what's going on. And you know what? We're not going to talk anymore about acquiring cards. So we're going to just get rid of... I think I grabbed squat. We're going to get rid of the morphing grid for the further explanations and just move everything a little over. And this is where we're going to cover other aspects of the game that we haven't handled yet, such as using your energy and fighting other characters. So that's really what I primarily want to go over. Now we'll take a look at the stuns quickly. Stuns, for example, whenever you heal and they happen to be a card that you control, they just get returned to the stun pile. It's very easy to resolve. Now, let's say you are playing as Mighty Morphin Red, Jason, and you want to attack Rito. Well, that's some stuff that you can definitely do. You'd have to spend the energy to trigger the attacks. You'll notice that once you're morphed, it's -2 to activate your attached cards. So, for example, the Sword of Darkness, you could spend just 5 energy. So, we'll have to imagine here, let's say you had like 15 energy. So, it's normally 7, it's only 5, you go down. 10 energy and you'll deal 5 damage. Now at this point, Rito has the opportunity to negate the damage. They may have a block card on their character that they can use, or they could even spend the energy cost from a card from their hand to block the damage. So let's say Rito did do that, just crank the energy up here. Spent 4 damage. Get the block, the attack. This card gets then discarded, goes in your discard pile. So that attack's negated. But when you notice with this, if the attack is negated with the Sword of Darkness, you deal 2 damage and the card would get discarded. So Rito's still going to take 2 damage. So that's how you're going to be activating your abilities and doing different stuff. You'll notice, though, that on Rito's card here, his main attacks only deals 1 damage for each card with the cost 2 or 3 that you control. Right now, he's not in that great of a place to do some damage. Let's say, here's a great example of this. We'll take Zordon's ability, for example. We'll spend another 4 energy with Jason to trigger him. You exhaust the hero. You then get to reveal the top card from your deck. If it's an equipment, draw it, it's not. Otherwise, you can destroy it or leave it, so it's a great way for you to destroy a card. And that'll be everything Jason wants to do this turn, let's say. Now, once you get to your end phase, you can discard any of your exhausted cards, or you can refresh them. Now, at any point in time, you may discard cards that are on your character in order to get them back in your deck. Sometimes you want to do that, though, because look, Zordon generates energy. We just blew through a bunch of it. So that's something that you want to take into consideration. Actually, should have a little bit more energy because this is only -2. You also have the ability to heal. Your Zords you can trigger whenever you want, like during your turn. Now once the Zord base filled up, for example, you could trigger all of them or do them separately. That's the way that works. Once they've been triggered, you have to spend 5 energy to ready all of the Zords that are attached there. Now, with regards to any of the masters, and we'll move Rito down, if you spend them, they go into play here. You deal 1 damage for each master that you control, and then you got this ongoing effect that happens at the start of the game. So essentially what you're going to be doing is attacking and blocking until one of the heroes' health goes all the way down. Well, heroes are villains, so one of the characters' health goes all the way down to 0, and then the person left standing is the victor. So there you have it. We've taught you how to play Power Rangers, a deck building game. Sorry, I got a little messy here. I know that I tried to keep everything condensed. I really want you to have a good view of the cards and what's going on. But now keep it right here as Julie and I will be coming back at you. So Power Rangers, the deck building game, a deck building game. I don't know. It just says deck building game. I kind of hate that name, not going to lie. What did you think of it?
So I think I have to preface this by saying my opinion of the game is most likely biased by the fact that I kicked Jason's butt every game we played.
You did not kick my butt every game. You definitely kicked my butt the last game, but you did win every single game.
It's the same thing.
No, it's not.
So I will admit that I really, really don't like losing, and that sometimes affects my attitude towards a game. So in this case,
to preface this, we have not played Star Wars Rebellion since he lost it 3 years ago.
So all that to say that I mean I like deck building games, and I enjoyed this because I won. But there are some faults to it, and I think you probably were a little bit frustrated with this game, and you probably have a little bit more negative view of the game. But all this to say, okay, I alluded to it. The time, I mean, we did play one game that was about 40 minutes.
But that was the one where I got my butt kicked.
Yeah, so it was fairly clear, fairly early on, that I kind of was on a roll and that it was going to be easier for me to beat Jason. But then you have the other extent. On the first game, we had this horrible back and forth where I would do a ton of damage and then Jason would heal a ton of damage.
Or I would block the damage. So I was basically hoping for a combo of cards to come through so that I could finally switch to the offensive, and it just never happened.
And I finally was able to break through, but I was like, okay, is this ever going to end? Because this is no fun. Because it was basically every turn I would, get my energy up. I would get a multi-pronged attack, and he always had the same cards coming up that were just blocking. And it was just, I mean, it's great for Jason, but it wasn't great for Jason because it was annoying for you too, I believe.
No, it was definitely long. I'd say the biggest problem that this game has is the length of play. I love a lot of what this game does, what it tries to do, and I think a lot of the problem actually comes with maybe too much theming, or the idea of flipping to the Ranger forms or becoming powered up. I would much rather this be a little simpler and straightforward, where you just build some cards and go at each other. While it's incredibly thematic, I would say it adds a good 20 to 30 minutes to the game, because at least 20 minutes of the game, maybe 15 if you play it really quickly, is getting your character and getting your engine going.
Yeah, and one of the things, I mean, I did find it easier to play the villain than to play the Rangers, because the Rangers, to get the Zords going and to use the Zords, felt harder than being able to use the Masters on the villains.
No, I have to agree with you. The Masters are really powerful. My last game, I made maybe one mistake where I maybe should have purchased a Master. That definitely hurt me. We'll talk a little bit more about the flow and how Julie definitely ran away with the game. But I want to say this. At 1v1, we have never seen the Megazord. It just hasn't happened. And there are a lot of mechanics that are designed around 2v2, where if your partner gets their Master, the cost of everything starts going down so that you can do a lot more stuff. So just remember, we played 1v1. I do think there's a better experience in this box at 2v2. I'm not so sure about 2v1, but I don't know. I'm not really happy with the 1v1 game that we got here.
Well, I mean, I enjoyed it. I mean, I don't know. We've played enough Power Rangers game for me to say this is definitely dripping in theme.
Yes.
It is like you're a Power Ranger playing the game, I think.
No, they've done a great job of capturing the theme. I love the art. Setup time is very quick. I'd say it's a little long when you're organizing the cards, figuring things out. But once you've got that down pat, it probably takes about 2-3 minutes to pull everything out of the box and get it going, which is absolutely fantastic. And all the characters feel different. All the Masters feel different. But problem with that, and this is something I would say, I do not feel like all Masters and all Rangers are created equal. There are definitely some Rangers that pair up better against certain Masters and vice versa. And then there's also the luck of the draw, which I think is a little too heavy in this game for my liking.
You can't complain about the luck of the draw because you got Morphing Time every single game. It just came up that it worked out.
No, I'm not talking about certain cards specifically. I'm talking more about your Master and your Ranger getting the right cards to be able to flip your card to their empowered or Ranger side. That can be a luck of the draw.
Yeah, it's also part strategy though as well.
No, not really. I'm gonna disagree with you hard on that one because I mean I've got Rita in front of me and you've got Trini, and Rita requires 2 villains and there's other Rangers that require 2 heroes. I do find that the heroes and the villains aren't as present, or if they do come up, for example, like the Yellow Ranger and the Putty Patroller, which are currently out in the Morphing Grid, they have a value at the bottom that they can be defeated, meaning they can disappear and be discarded because they will attack the other players, which is a very cool mechanic, but the fact that they can be defeated and you can't get them afterwards can really slow down your character progress.
I don't know. I mean, I had 2 heroes when I had Trini because I didn't realize that she only needed 1 hero, so I ended up buying 2.
But you also had a lot of heroes that came up. At one point, you had like Alpha 5, Zordon. I beat one of them. Another one came up on your turn. Like there is definitely a fair bit of luck.
Like all deck builders, there's a certain amount of luck.
I agree with you, but the fact that those cards can be removed from the grid creates a problem for some other characters. That's all I'm saying. It's not something that I think is balanced or is really well done. I think if you need 1 character, I think all of them should need 1. I get the idea that Rita is, controlling people, or like Tommy Oliver, he's the leader, so he should have more heroes, she needs more villains, but in actual practice, I think it's broken. I really don't like the mechanic.
Well, one of the things that this game does have that you like normally
is the signature weapons, which do compensate for that.
The culling mechanic. The card culling mechanic.
Yes, the card culling mechanic is really good, but also, once again, it is too random for me. You've got a card, I think it's, for the Rangers, it's attitude. For the villains, it's disposable. If it comes up at the right time when you're battling, you can really slim your deck out, and that's how when you were Jason and I was Rita, we had such a long game because I kept pulling the same cards every time, which was really cool. But if you pull disposable at the wrong time after you battled, then it's just a completely wasted dead card. I like the idea of it, but once again, the execution I feel is completely lacking.
Okay, then. Did you have something else that you wanted to say about it?
Well, yeah, I want to say that I like the theme. I like the way things work. The villains are cool. The Rangers' different powers. The battling a hero, I think, is cool. I just wish there was some way to, maybe buy that hero that's been defeated or buy that villain that's been defeated. And I would just like some more deterministic things. I really don't find a lot of balance between all the characters. For example, Rita's ability is to hit characters that have empty slots on their Ranger. And that's cool, but it's not often that people have empty slots that they're discarding stuff to equip new stuff.
Well, I did have empty slots, and then you hit me, and then I realized I'm just going to always keep my slots full.
Yeah, but once you get the right cards, you don't want to get them empty, so that attack becomes very weak.
There was Scorpina that basically made you discard a card every time.
Exactly. Looking at all the masters and all the villains, I think Scorpina might be the best one. Yeah. And that's what I'm saying here. Like, we had our best game, the one, I made a mistake in that game. We'll talk a little bit more about running away the game, but when I was Tommy, she was Scorpion, I was a White Ranger, I mistakenly had Kimberly equipped, and her cards just wasn't great. I used her to get morphed. I should have discarded her and been using her to get energy. I kind of ran myself into a wall there. It was a lot more balanced. I almost defeated her, and then I just wasn't getting the energy to keep my attack going. So that was on me. That was a solid, balanced game. But I'd say the other one,
I could still have beaten him, but we'll let him.
No, but it was a balanced game. It could have gone either way. I'm saying, I put myself in the hole so that I didn't have a chance. That was me making a mistake. You played very well. But this last game, you completely ran away with it. And that was all, like you said, luck. You got your attitude card at the right time. You got some of the best cards came up for you in the Morphin Grid. And when you got to destroy 3 cards at once, you just slimmed down your hand and you then morphed, I think 2 turns later. I couldn't get the card that I needed to become empowered. That being said, Rita's empowered attack is only when you've got the unattached cards. So you were off to the races and I was just behind. That's just the way it kind of worked out. And it just wasn't fun for me. I do think there's a lot of different mechanics and things that are going to come into play at 2v2, but 1v1, and I think this is where I really stand on a game like this. When we're playing heads up competitive, I've got better games to play. Like, that's just really what it is. I have games that are going to be closer, more interesting. We could play Dune Imperium, and actually, so this is the thing that I didn't realize this until now it's coming out of my mouth. Dune Imperium takes less time to play than Power Rangers. We could play Red Rising and almost get in 2 games of Red Rising the time it can take us to play 1 game of Power Rangers, the deck building game. That's where I'm also starting to see some real flaws in this one, to me.
Are you ready to give it a rating?
Yes, is there anything else you want to say that you liked about the game? I mean, we didn't talk about like the card stock or the components or anything like that.
Well, I mean, the cards are okay. It's not the thickest card stock, but they're okay.
Yeah, the cards are okay. They got a nice finish. They're starting to show somewhere already after just a few games. The cardboard is really nice quality. So overall, I'm happy with what we got. But if you're going to be playing this game a lot, I would definitely say that you want to sleeve the game. I do think that this has a lot of standard deck building mechanics, and it's a fun Power Rangers game. I just don't think it's good at 1v1. So you wanted me to rate it. I'm going to give my rating. It's a 5.5. I was debating between 6.5 and 5. I think as a 1v1 experience, I just can't give this a passing grade. It's okay. There's a lot of stuff here that I like, but this, as it stands right now, unless something changes after we play 2v2, it's probably going to get called. It's going to be on its way out of here. I'm disappointed. I really wanted to like this game. I'm eagerly looking forward to the Transformers deck building game from Renegade, which is supposed to be co-op and competitive. I think this would be better co-op, or just, I don't know. There's something missing. It could be I just like Heroes of the Grid so much more than this too. You can actually play a game of Heroes in the Grid in about the same amount of time it may take you to play this. That's another problem for me.
So it's a 6.5 for me. I mean, I think Jason is, like I said, I won. I think Jason might be a little discouraged by his 3 losses. He says he isn't, but I think it would affect me if I had lost 3. I mean, I would be frustrated with the game as well. But I mean, I enjoyed playing it. There are some wonky things to it, but there are a lot of games. That's why it doesn't have higher than that. But I definitely still think it's a passing game, and this game to me was more fun than some of the other stuff that we've played. So for me, it's still a 6.5. I am looking forward to playing it at 4 players to see if it's, I think it's going to be it would be a different game.
No, I want to play this at 4. I think it was clearly designed around that 2v2 mechanic. I think that's the way that it's meant to be played. Hopefully we'll get a chance to try it out, see what it's like. I just can't give it a passing grade because I have so many games for a 1v1 heads-up experience that are better and that are faster. Actually, wait, I'm going to just want to be clear on this. If this game played 30 minutes to an hour with solid close games every single time, this game would get a passing grade from me. This would probably be a 7. The time that it takes to play really is a detriment to me.
But we did get a game in 40 minutes.
Yes, but it wasn't a really fun game. It was a game where
I had fun.
You had fun, but you call your cards. I go, great, you're off to the races. Then you morphed, and I looked at you, and I said, I'm dead. And 3 turns later, I was dead. I could see it coming a mile away, which is just not fun.
So on that note, it's time to remind you to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified when we have some new content for you.
Take a look down below in the video description. You will find links to all of our social media feeds, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If you'd like to see pictures of Julie and I playing Power Rangers, the deck building game, there'll be plenty of pictures on those feeds. You can find us playing Heroes of the Grid. I suggest you check those out. Better pictures, I think. They're minis and better game. Also down there is a link to multizone.ca, which will take you to a great Canadian game store. Click that link, get 10% off your next purchase, and a portion of that purchase gets returned to us, so it's a great way for you to support the channel. Then popping up in front of me is going to be a link to our most recently released video, and in front of Julie is going to be
obviously Heroes of the Grid. You've talked about it so many times.
Yeah, our link to our review and how to play of Power Rangers Heroes of the Grid. And now what time is it?
Time to grab our drinks.
Grab our now best friend. We're friends again.
And we're going to keep playing games.
Keep playing games. We'll get this one back to the table and we can play in person.